Zoro's domain expansion just broke One Piece. And this is pretty big news considering that last week, Zoro's Bankai broke One Piece, and the week before that, it was Zoro's Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan that broke One Piece. Today I'd like to talk about a very peculiar phenomenon specific to this fanbase, something that drove a human being to write a 43-page thesis dissecting. I have it here, and it's a lot of paper. And it all amounts to fictional pirate controversy. More so than any anime or manga series, One Piece is a prime source of theories. There are entire channels dedicated to just making One Piece theories. No other kind of content, just theories. And to be fair, many of them are really good and well thought out pieces of speculation, but there is one very important exception. There is one ingredient that One Piece theory chefs have yet to master, and that is the gamey slab of man meat that is Roanoa Zoro. Again, to put this out there, there has never been a good Zoro theory, including this one, by the way, and again, this is a 43-page Zoro thesis. It's legitimately hard to explain why this exists, but I'm gonna try anyway. As an appetizer, allow me to treat you to the pirate hunter Zoro theory. This is the idea that Zoro never stopped being a bounty hunter. He just grew uninterested in making petty cash in East Blue. Nah, what this serious sword man wants is a big score. Enter Monkey D. Luffy. At the very end of the series, Zoro is going to betray Luffy. The idea is that all this time, Zoro's been playing the long game, and he's going to secure the biggest reward in bounty hunting history by capturing the Pirate King. But in order to do so, Zoro first needs to make Luffy the Pirate King. So Zoro is creating a problem purely to profit off its solution. Kind of like a firefighter committing arson so that he gets called in to put it out. And not only that, but Zoro's been acting as a double agent this entire time. I mean, remember when Zoro tried to cut off Luffy's finger when it was stuck in a bottle? Suspicious. And you might think that this sounds ridiculous. However, evidence. This has been foreshadowed by Oda because Zoro's epithet is still Pirate Hunter, even though he hasn't been a bounty hunter for well over 1,000 chapters at this point. So why is he still Pirate Hunter Zoro? Well, I guess technically he's never stopped hunting pirates. It's just now that he does it for pleasure rather than for profit. Almost all of Zoro's opponents, nay victims in the series, have been pirates. Notable exceptions include Kaku, now Rob Lucci, and well, that's actually kind of it. There was that brief skirmish with Fujitora, I suppose. But none of that matters because picture this though, right? After his inevitable betrayal, Zoro's epithet would change from Pirate Hunter to Pirate King Hunter. Admittedly, it does have a nice ring to it if you ignore, well, everything. And you may have heard this idea thrown around as a joke, but these people are very serious. And when I say serious, I mean serious, and we'll get into this shortly. But first, I have a world record for you. This is the world record for fastest theory to ever be debunked. It's known as World's Greatest Zoro, and it proposed that Zoro beat Mihawk during the time skip and is thus already the world's greatest swordsman. That would indeed be quite the twist if Zoro hadn't quite literally stated that he wasn't the world's greatest swordsman yet, which he did on Dressrosa, and when alerted to this, the theory crafter responded with, well, it's officially debunked. Only took 10 minutes after I posted this thread, lol, which I have to say is quite the graceful defeat. Most Zoro theorists are a bit more stubborn. And look, I'm not saying that there is a 2-hour documentary on YouTube from a Zoro theorist trying to justify his position after the theory was debunked, but also that does exist and that's exactly what it is. Now you might think that the cognitive blockade when it comes to Zoro spawns from pure fanboyism. The whole Zoro is cool and therefore always needs to do cool things. But that's not the case, and we can prove that with the death of Roanoa Zoro. Chapter 784 introduced us to a color spread called Picnic with zombies. An utterly meaningless fun piece of artwork to casual fans, but an infamous symbol of caution for those of us who are chronically online, because the ensuing idea spread like an STI at a theory orgy. And I use that analogy because the oldest known source of this theory that I can find was linked on Reddit to a site called OnePieceLove.com, which sounds like an online dating platform specifically for One Piece fans, and is honestly not a terrible idea. This website no longer exists, but apparently you can purchase the domain for $8,895 if you want some One Piece love for yourself. Luckily, on the internet, nothing is ever gone forever, so here is the full vintage theory in its original text. This cover doesn't seem too bad at first, but notice the tombstone on the lower left corner and the tombstone Zoro is sitting on. Some may think that he's sitting on a grave because they are having a picnic on a graveyard, and where else are you gonna sit? But if you look closely, Zoro is the only one sitting on a grave. The others are sitting on the grass or a tablecloth. Those tombstones have writings on them, and also are the only ones that are kind of clear to read. December 944 is written on a tombstone in the lower left corner. I believe it stands for chapter 9 994. Now, if you look at Zoro, he is wearing a t-shirt with a skull on it, symbol of death. And also his left hand is around a zombie, and his hat has a skull on it. Also in the background, there is a zombie dancing, and he has a skull on his hat as well. So just as a bit of a recap here, that's 3 skulls, 2 zombies, 2 hats, and 1 t-shirt. But what does it all mean? It makes me wonder if Zoro will fight someone and die in the process while having his last laugh, and if it's going to happen in chapter 944. Alright, that was a big leap. But basically the idea is that Zoro was sitting on a tombstone. That tombstone had the number 944 on it, and therefore Zoro is going to die in chapter 944. Many years then passed, almost a decade actually, and as the appointed time got closer, a Reddit thread was posted titled, "Sorry for the Zoro fans in denial, but all the evidences are here. The massive internal conflict between Zoro and the Straw Hats is happening soon. Very likely at chapter 944. Now, this thread begins with, "This post is really long, but I think it's worth your time." But it wasn't, and I'm not going to cover it. So chapter 944 was released, and rather appropriately, nothing happened. The internet had collectively wasted 8 years of their lives and moved on in despair that Zoro was not dead. But this was an 8-year theory. No one thought that anything on this scale would ever happen again, let alone bigger. And well, the we that is us, we thought wrong. So I've talked about this before in other videos, but I don't think I've ever even scratched the surface of the true extent of madness that is Zoro kills Kaido, or ZKK for short, or ZKK if you're American, because you do that. But that's what this is. On the 28th of May 2022, Twitter user Mehmet and YouTuber Fiji combined their efforts to create a 43-page dissertation titled Roanoa Zoro, the one to kill Kaido. And on the front page, it also contained the disclaimer of, "Don't be scared, length is mostly due to the pictures." Also on the front page was a plug noting that Fiji was about to release a ZKK mega theory, which I'm not sure if it ever happened. However, Fiji did release an almost 2-hour documentary of the Zoro kills Kaido theory that goes over every point in this document and tries to retrospectively justify the thinking. So yes, I actually went to the effort of printing the entire thing because this is a cultural artifact. It belongs in a museum of embarrassment. And the paper culminates in a prediction of the exact chapter in which Zoro will kill Kaido. Not may, will. And this isn't just vague speculation either. The author actually develops quite a complex mathematical formula to determine the exact chapter number. It's absolutely incredible, as in not credible. Something to note from the outset is that this paper was put together after Luffy reached Gear 5th. So even at that late stage of Wano, the ZKK believers were invested harder than ever. The crux of the idea is that Zoro has parallels with the Wano samurai Ryuma. Kaido is a dragon, and Ryuma slew a dragon, therefore so would Zoro, which he did do in chapter 656 and again in 1035, but he needed to do it a 3rd time because he's the 3-sword Zoro guy. 3 is his number, except for 2 because he was the 2nd member of the crew, and except for 1, Zoro has a thing for 1s, like his birthday, 1111, and his bounty, 1111. But 3 is what we're looking at. And if anything, a history of dragon slaying only enhances this destiny further. On page 29 of the dissertation, an effort is made to draw connections to dragons with each of Zoro's past opponents. First up, Draco Mihawk, whose name comes from Dracula, believed to be derived from the Latin Draco, meaning dragon. Well, shit a dick. Very convincing, but what else? Kaku was a giraffe fruit user. Giraffes are called Kirin in Japanese, and the Kirin is a mythical creature that heavily resembles a dragon. Meanwhile, Skybreeder Ohm can manipulate clouds just like Eastern dragons. This is all very compelling. I feel like I'm one piece of information away from believing it. What else have we got? At one point, Mr. One used an attack to make his hands look like claws. Dragon claws, to be precise. And the author also flags Shiryu, who Zoro hasn't fought yet, but it's a very popular fan assumption that they will fight. And this is important because Shi means death and Ryu means dragon. So that means that Zoro is going to kill the death dragon. I mean, if anything, Shiryu is the one being set up to kill Kaido. He's literally called Death Dragon. On page 8, there's a list of parallels between Zoro, Ryuma, and Kozuki Oden, which starts with, both cannot navigate. So when it comes to these 3 characters, both of them are incapable of navigating, good to know. But the idea is to connect Zoro with the inherited will of Ryuma as well as Oden. Zoro needs to finish what Oden started, and he needs to start what Ryuma finished and then finish it himself. As a side note, all of this Ryuma stuff is based on the Monsters one-shot, which is the canon story of Ryuma. And apparently it takes place on Wano, at least according to Onimaru at least, meaning that if you 200 years ago, Wano went through a very cowboy phase before deciding on its feudal Japanese aesthetic. Now, you've probably heard of the phrase to jump the shark, but have you heard of Zoro is a shark? Well, page 12 is entirely dedicated to the Zoro shark conundrum. So this shark, mate, this shark, it's a problem because there's 3 pages in this paper trying to draw a connection to Chinese mythology. The idea is that both Zoro and Kaido are one of the 4 sacred beasts. Kaido being the eastern dragon Seryu, which to be fair, his fruit literally is, and Zoro representing the white tiger. And to continue being very fair, Zoro is generally zoomorphized as a tiger, and there's even that white tiger with a sword in its mouth on Wano. But then we arrive at the shark argument. In the SBS of Volume 20, Oda revealed which animals the first 5 Straw Hats would be, and Oda stated that Zoro would be a shark. Now, you probably already realize this, but this is a big problem for this paper because it dedicates 3 whole pages to justifying Zoro kills Kaido through their dragon and tiger resemblance. How could the author possibly counter this? Well, let's read. Zoro is ... a shark. These dots are also present in the Japanese version. As we can see, Oda is not sure about it. The author then goes on to claim that Oda labeling Zoro as a shark was a red herring, going so far as to draw a Zoro shark in chapter 1013 for this exact purpose, to double down on the red herring. It would spoil the end of the Wano arc for those who already know the yin and yang or dragon-tiger mythology, of course. 23 years prior to this paper being written, Oda stated that Zoro would be a shark and deliberately inserted that ellipsis because he already knew that the real answer would be a tiger. However, that would spoil readers that Zoro was going to kill an enemy who wouldn't appear until 14 years after that volume was published. I mean, gah, Oda's foreskinning is unlike anything we've seen before. Oda is such a fantastic story planner, but people accuse him of far too much, and I say accuse because this goes beyond just giving him credit. This is actively accusing Eiichiro Oda of conspiracy to deceive the readers of his fictional pirate comic, although the author ultimately concedes that it doesn't really matter. Everything makes sense anyway because Kaido is a fish. Therefore, it is a perfect parallel. Dragon and fish versus tiger and shark. On page 33, the author notes the exact number of Kaido's Vivia card, which is 944. You may remember this number as the exact same one as the gravestone that Zoro was sitting on in the Picnic with Zombies color spread. Remember that from the Zoro will die theory? We will never be able to get rid of that color spread. And because Zoro didn't die in chapter 944, that means that his dragon slaying butt crack is parked on the grave of whoever happens to be the unfortunately designated character number 944. Although it is a legitimately fun coincidence that that happens to be Kaido. Alright, this next part though is one of my favorite bits. On page 34, the author points out the color spread for chapter 1028, featuring Robin as a demon and Sanji as a cyborg. Now, Robin would of course go on to become a demon on Onigashima, and Sanji was revealed to be genetically enhanced, sort of like a cyborg, but also not really, if at all. And of course, the thinking here, according to the author, is that Zoro is dressed as Link from Zelda. Link used the same sword to slay a dragon. Therefore, Zoro will slay a dragon. Also in this color spread, Jinbei is Mario, and that never really happened. Although I love that this is actually addressed in the paper by stating Mario is a plumber, fits Jinbei and controlling water. Zoro beating King, which is a direct reference to Ryuma in Monsters, is used as evidence that Zoro was going to kill Kaido as well, because Kaido could also become a fire dragon. So just let me try and untangle this. Ryuma beating a dragon was foreshadowing for Zoro beating a dragon, which was foreshadowing for him killing another dragon shortly after. That's the logic here. And also the fact that Fire Dragon Kaido is being used as evidence here means that this paper was published after Kaido was defeated by Luffy, because he takes that form and in the very next chapter, he's down, punched into magma by Luffy. And it's from this position that the author believes that Zoro still has an opportunity to kill Kaido. Let's hear the author out though, because as stated, they were able to calculate the exact chapter number in which Zoro would kill Kaido. And that is chapter 1060, a number which was calculated to a painful degree using a pattern dictated by color spreads. Let me explain. In chapter 929 in the color spread, Zoro is shown holding a scythe, and 8 chapters later, Zoro defeats Killer, who was using a scythe. Meanwhile, 68 chapters later, Zoro cuts Queen's machine gun, and Nami was holding a machine gun in the 929 color spread. So we have two numbers, right? 8 and 68. But that's not all we need to crack the code. In chapter 937, Oda creates another color spread. He can't keep getting away with this. One in which Zoro is holding a map containing the kanji Enma. And 18 chapters later, Zoro receives Enma. Are you seeing the pattern here? Probably not, and I think that's for the best. But to recap, the important numbers are 8, 18, and 68, which takes us to the color spread that gives away the entire game. In chapter 992, Zoro is depicted consuming a bowl of deliciousness. But wait, what's that? Upon this bowl is a blue dragon. And not only that, but now Zoro has been a hungry boy, with 3 empty bowls sitting under his 3 blades. 3 bowls, 3 blades, 3, Zoro number. 4 though, 4 bowls in total. And how do you say 4 in Japanese? Shi or yon, it can be both, but we're gonna go with shi because shi means death. Remember Shiryu, death dragon? This could not be more clear. Zoro's 4 bowls tells us that he is going to shi the crap out of Kaido, and now all we need to do is follow the established pattern of 8, 18, and 68. 8 chapters after this color spread was published, Zoro meets Kaido for the very first time. 18 chapters after this color spread is the chapter where Zoro scars Kaido, meaning that exactly 68 chapters from this color spread is when Zoro is going to kill Kaido. And that sets Kaido's expiry date at chapter 1060. This is it. Eiichiro Oda has spent more than 2 decades painstakingly building up to this one chapter. This is the culmination of Zoro's character. It's the culmination of Kaido's character. It's the culmination of life as a whole. This is everything. And in chapter 1060, Zoro does indeed go on to kill a warm eddy by slicing it in half. Then a little goal popped up and we started Egghead Island because Kaido had already been beaten when this paper was published and the series had long since moved on from caring about Kaido in any way, shape, or form. But as much as One Piece may have moved on, this theory will live forever. It will specifically live forever in my office bathroom where I've had it framed so that every day as I wander in to expel some expellant, I will have the honor of being treated to this great work of humanity in the exact environment in which it belongs. I also didn't have enough frames to do the whole thing. It's a very long document, so the rest can sit with the toilet paper. And you let me know in the comments if there are any weird theories that you want explored on the channel.